Join Chris and Suzanne Vester today on Faith, Family, Fulfillment as they lead discussions on creating a strong bond and having a loving relationship through Christian values. Guests on the show share insightful stories and ideas to enhance a positive family upbringing and create trust in one another, as well as providing encouraging words of wisdom everyone should hear. And now, here are Chris and Suzanne.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Faith, Family, Fulfillment. I am your co-host, Chris.
And I'm Suzanne.
And we're finishing up a series today.
We are.
Third of 3 parts. And about how to reframe looking at the new year. That's kind of how we've gone about doing this. So I'll pray us in and we'll get started. Lord, as always, we come to you thankful for today. And just really appreciative of who you are and how you show up for us. I'm asking that you lead and guide us in this conversation. And so the ones going into the new year can look at the new year in a new way and at least consider, if not just do, putting you at the center of all of it in a way that you get the glory and they get to see how you move in their life. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. So we've talked folks through the process of defining their standards and getting clear on the action they want to take. So talk to me like I'm somebody who has no idea what this is about, has heard those 2 episodes, is like, all right, now what?
So, I said we start with a new standard statement. And the way that I carry people through this is, and I've been through it one way and I've seen it done multiple ways. But the way that I have seen the most success coming through it is getting people to define, and I want them to think about it for a good week. We talk about it for a week and they come in the next week. So what are the 4 to 6 things that you enjoy doing the most? Activities, simple like reading or being in the gym or running or selling cars. And you guys, I coach sell cars. A lot of them sell cars. So what are the things that bring you the most, in worldly terms, joy? And when they bring me those activities, the next thing is, okay, well, how does that particular activity make you feel? What's the adjective of how you feel and the emotion that you feel in that moment? And of course, one of the things that a lot of people mention is spending time with their family, and so, okay, well, how does that make you feel? Connected, valued, loved? Like there's all these different kind of things that have come from that. So what'll happen is you'll get 4 to 6 descriptors that define who they are, because those things that they find the most joy in is what they usually end up putting the most time into. In other words, that's what they put value in. People will say, well, what are core values? Well, where you place your time determines your values. As a man's heart goeth, there goeth he. Like that's the whole thing. So if you think about where the heart is, then that's where you put your time. That's where the idea of value is placed in it. So using those values, if they value, it's like some people really enjoy spending time volunteering. It makes them feel generous, right? And so generosity would be a value. Love could be a value. Value, like feeling valued, could be a value. Connected could be a value. So you come up with these 4 to 6 words of what you value. And then I smith those into a statement that says that is who they are. And like it's the first person that goes through it in a group kind of ruins it for everybody, because at the end of it, when we read the statement out, I go, okay, well,
everybody gets it.
At the end of your life, right? If you're laying there in a box and they're talking above you and they say that this is who you were, would you consider that description of who you were to be a life well lived?
Okay.
And then it's okay, well, how do you start acting towards that standard so that at that point, that's how they describe you?
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it on here before, I did not go through it that way. So mine has been worded a little bit differently because of the way I was carried through it. But I think it does embody things that I definitely value.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a bold man who acts with integrity and from love.
Mm-hmm.
And I stand as a beacon pointing to God's grace and mercy. Like that's, and in any given moment, I can measure a decision against that statement.
Mm-hmm.
And it will lead me in a direction that points to that statement.
Mm-hmm.
So that over the course of my life, at the end of it, then I should have lived by that statement. So then people standing above my box and say, you know what? Chris was bold. Like he wore some crazy tennis shoes. Like that's bold.
And lots of patterns.
Lots of patterns. But he acted with integrity, and you knew he always came at you from a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you knew, right, because of where he came from and where he ended up, that he was definitely a beacon shining a light on God's mercy and grace.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be, in my opinion, a life well lived. Because I think it encompasses a lot. It encompasses how I would like to show up for my family, how I would like to show up in business, how I would like to show up in my church, how I would like to show up in my community. I'd be okay with that.
Okay. So once everybody has got that statement and they're good with that being their parting gift to the world,
Right.
then what?
Okay. So that's kind of casting the first vision, right? That's the first kind of introduction to, hey, what does it look like looking back at the end of my life? Okay. Well, we're not going to go that far. We're going to go 12 weeks. So when we look at the idea of their mental or spiritual space,
okay,
what is it that they want to work on? What is it they want to develop? What is it they want to try to, where do they feel they're lacking in that particular area?
Mm-hmm.
And then what does that look like at the end of 12 weeks?
Okay.
I think we said it on here in our first episode about how easy it is to come up with a tactic or an objective and a tactic. The objective is I want to lose 25 pounds, and the tactic would be, hey, I'm going to start walking 45 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
But where people fall short is, hey, what does that look like at the end?
Mm-hmm.
So coming up with an I have and I am statement based around that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it will still always, one standard statement encompasses all four of the visions,
Mm-hmm.
but every single thing that we work on has its own vision statement attached to it,
Mm-hmm.
which I think we discussed on here.
Mm-hmm.
So we clearly define those four vision statements, objectives, and tactics, or involved in all four of those areas. And then it's weekly check-ins.
Mm-hmm.
Every single week, we meet for an hour, excuse me. And in that hour, I say, okay, what were the wins?
Right.
Like, where do you see yourself already making more progress than you thought?
Mm-hmm.
And what were the stumbles along
Mm-hmm.
the way? And that I usually like just kind of taking notes of what everybody's stumbles are. And then we'll go around the room, get everybody's wins, everybody's stumbles, and everybody's struggles. And then we dive into, hey, okay, well, that was a struggle. What do you think caused it?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you lose sight of the vision?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you violate the tactic? Right. And how can we make it up so that you can still achieve the objective in 12 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
But it's daily tracking. Like some of the tactics will be a daily thing they've got to do. Some of it's weekly. I think the least I would do would be bi-weekly on some stuff. But at the end of that first week, let's say I'm going to walk 45 minutes a day, 5 days out of 7. And 5 of the days they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then they're 100% that week. And there's 84 days, right? 84 days, 7 and 12 weeks, 7 times 12, 84. So that's out of that, it's 7 out of 84, which is 1/12. So that's the percent they are close to ending that vision. So it's just it's a weekly check-in so they can see progress every single week and how close are they getting to achieving the 100% they're looking for at the end.
Okay.
So it's every single week we do check-ins.
So we've gotten to week 1. I'm doing my check-in,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been a fail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, epic.
Right.
All across the board.
Okay.
And I have got about 3 dozen excuses that I'm going to throw out. Short of telling somebody
You're fired. You have to leave. You can't be in a group anymore.
You have failed. So how do you regroup? Let's say that first week is just like you have the best intentions. And then, like we said kind of before, like just because you speak it out loud does not mean that all the other things in your life are going to automatically kind of shift and enable you to get there.
Right.
The actual opposite of that is probably more true.
Oh, for sure.
The more that you want to achieve something that is a stretch, the more likely everything is going to go wrong.
Right.
Like Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will. So let's say I'm that person and I'm coming in and my first week has just been abysmal.
Right.
All right. So how do we regroup? How do we restructure and kind of relaunch into week 2, understanding that there cannot be 12 weeks of fails?
Right. Because we've had people that came in and the first week, nothing hit.
But was there effort?
That's the thing. It's identifying where the work's failing. Remember, the implementation of anything new requires the elimination of something old. So then the question becomes, what did we not eliminate so that we can implement?
Okay.
Right. Because everything's for the most part in those 4 areas, most of them are some type of a time requirement. Like you got to put time into relationships. You got to put time into your contribution, how you're showing up. You got to put time into your body. You got to, like, all those things are somewhat of a time requirement. Where did you not make space? And where did you have space? So I look at wake up times, go to bed times. We identify, and I learned this from Al Hammond. Maybe we'll tag him in this, but he is like the king of 4-quarter living. Like you live, like what part of your day are you working on me, meaning your personal self? What part of your day are you working on the business? What part of the day are you working in the business? And then what part of the day are you working on your we time, your family time, your significant other, like whoever's in your life, who's the we? So if everything that we do in ours, the majority of it is going to be in the we, in the me part of it. So identifying that if you take care of that first thing, then how much better the rest of the day goes. And then the we part, if it's relationships, that's definitely in we. So where did you not commit to doing the we part of your day? And being able to take and break it down like that helps them identify what they didn't eliminate. Okay, well, to get this done, I need an extra 30 minutes a day. Okay, where are you going to find that? Is it going to be first thing in the morning? Well, that means you got to get up. What time do you go to bed? Oh, 1:30. Well, there's a problem. So it's just walking them through their day to help them find the time, or not find the time, identify the time.
Right. Carving it out.
It's about intentionality. Leadership is like, I've said it before, like in a relationship, the one who's intentional about the relationship it ends up being, that's the one who leads the relationship because of the intentionality. So if they're going to lead themselves well, they got to become intentional about how they're leading themselves, intentional about what they're pruning out, intentional about what they're eliminating. What is it that's not moving them towards that end vision, that new statement, that new standard? And it gets really easy to do when you've identified, this is who I would love to be known as,
right?
As they lower me in the dirt or sprinkle me in the ocean or whatever they do with you. Because you can always go back to that. So did this week identify you as that?
Right.
Because they have said, it's all coming, it's not using their words against them. It's just making them very aware of where they're violating who they say they want to be known as. Because they're, a lot of it's, they say, I don't have discipline, but they're 100% disciplined to the habits they already have.
Right.
So it's redefining where you're using your discipline, which takes time.
Right. And when everything's get hard, and this is something that I say a lot, when things get hard, your first inclination is to go back to where you were comfortable, which are your bad habits or things that are not serving you well. That's the easiest place for you to go back because you've been there for a minute and you know what that feels like. So when things get a little tough, that's everyone's kind of first inclination is, I want to be I want to not feel this anymore. So rather than pushing through it, like really kind of strategically pulling it apart and thinking about it and looking at it and going, okay, this is where it fell apart. They would rather kind of take a few steps backwards and go, okay, well, I know what this feels like. It's not an unknown to me anymore.
Right.
So talk about a little bit, I'm gonna put you on a time limit because this can go on for a while, but people don't have, well, okay, let me rephrase. I have experienced when talking with people about in and on, they have no idea how much the in, if you stay there all day, will get you down rabbit trails and in a ditch. And if you stay there for too long, you're going to stay there pretty much forever, because you can stay in the in of things indefinitely.
Right.
So what would you consider to be an in and an on activity, and make it really general to try not to make it too specific?
Yeah. So like, and again, it's, I mean, most everybody I'm coaching, right, in that situation has something to do with our business. And so the end part of it, in part of the business, or the end part of their day, is what are they doing to actively handle something right then in service of a customer? I'll take a salesperson, for example. The end part of his day is when he has a customer in front of him. The on part of his day and his time would be how he's developing business for tomorrow. So what am I doing? What activity am I generating or taking place? What activity is taking place right now that will generate an opportunity for me? Whether it's this afternoon, tomorrow, next month, next year, like there's an opportunity driver. The end is when the opportunity is in front of me.
So would you say that the on part of things is somewhat foundational? It's building. So you're continuing to lay layers onto that foundation that's going to actually serve you later. Maybe not in immediacy. So maybe not today or tomorrow.
Right. Yes. I mean, it can serve you pretty quick, you know,
if you're consistent.
But yes, the own is, what are you doing that will have a future return? What investment are you making today to have future return? And then it's still an investment. The end business is still an investment, but it's just a more immediate payout. What's the investment I've got today? That will have immediate payout, and they're directly correlated. So it's the more time you try to build new opportunities for the future, eventually those opportunities come in the door, and that's where the payout happens. That's where the investment that's where it shows up. But you said a while ago, if you spend all your time in the in, well, if the customer walks in the door and, you know, the average car sales takes between 2 and 3 hours, unfortunately, because of all the stuff the government makes us do at this point, but it's, 2.5, 3 hours. Okay. Well, if the customers, you're finished, they have a great experience, they leave, and then you never do anything to follow up with them, to double check on them. Like, the next opportunity will be left up to happenstance of maybe when they send you a customer, or maybe when they need their next opportunity. Like, you have no idea.
Right.
But if you're continuing to connect with them and check on them and make sure that life is going well, if life has changed, then it's just showing up and owning mental real estate.
And would you say you agree or disagree that most people stay in the in expecting things to be fed and fueled?
I think so. But even like when I sit down with the managers in our departments and started talking about that concept with them, I guess it's probably 2 years ago is the first time I was literally started having conversation around that with them. Like, they had never dissected their day, audited their time in the day, and broken it out as, hey, what am I working on that's going to have an immediate payout that needs to be done right now? The immediate, like the urgent. Right. And what am I doing that's important to drive business growth for tomorrow? And the cool thing about it is, a lot of times in that position of management, some of the things that you need to be doing to build for tomorrow are activities that you could be showing someone else and growing them to do. So it is about building your personal business inside of our business, but it's also about developing someone else's business inside of our business. So, so the idea of necessarily delegating it down is not what I don't like to use the word delegate. I think it's train. I mean, you're training the next person.
Yeah.
You know.
So you hit on something I was hoping you would say it. The urgent.
Right.
So it's really easy to get caught up in the tyranny of the urgent.
Yeah.
To the point where you're creating a lot of that, I think. Because it does keep you busy, but not necessarily productive. So how would you say, we've walked someone through this, so we've gotten their standard. We've talked about how to be very clear on each of the areas. What do you want to accomplish? What is it going to take to do that? What are you adding in and taking away so that you can make action steps that way? Then life gets in the way. Things, kind of maybe get off the rails a little bit. And I think that happens the most often because people do deal with the things that are urgent and not necessarily important. And then they kind of just stay there because it does fuel the need to be needed in a lot of regards. So you might feel, well, I'm going to stay here because I'm solving problems and I'm doing good. And all the while you're neglecting all of the things that are going to make you great.
Right. And I say good's the enemy of great all the time in the organization. That's a consistent thing. But what's important is not necessarily always urgent. What's urgent is not necessarily important. And a lot of times what's urgent has come at the result of not handling the important.
Right.
And because the important got ignored or put on the back burner, it created an urgency.
It started screaming.
It started the kettle pot.
It started whistling.
So if we spend more time working on the important and developing the important and making sure that box has been fully checked, then the urgents are they are urgent, but they didn't come from the ignoring the important.
Right.
And I think that's the way to you said ignoring. How do you avoid the tyranny of urgent? By handling the important. I think that's the answer,
Yes, I think the nugget that people can take away is if you find yourself fighting fires all day, perhaps, just perhaps, maybe you take a step back and reevaluate what you've not been doing well.
Yeah, like half of them you started.
And you may have thrown gasoline on a few of them.
For sure. If they come into that room and we're working on those 4 areas, they obviously understand those 4 areas are important for them to work on, especially when they develop this new standard. Like it's going to be important to do those things because they're going to step into the standard, new standard. So they're important. Well, if you're doing those things, there's less and less urgent things that pop up. Like it's relationship wise, right? If you do the important of how you're interacting with your family or your spouse or your kid or whatever that is, then the urgency of getting out of the fight when it happens, there's less of those.
Right.
But yeah, it's again, if you'll handle the important, there's less unimportant, urgent things.
Fair. Final thoughts. Encouragements.
Well,
Words of wisdom. Words of wisdom.
Yeah. The encouragement is one bad week's not enough to blow the whole plan.
True.
We did the year of Live Hard, which is 75 hard for almost a year. And if you don't know what 75 hard is, just Google it and follow Andy for so long.
Yes.
But one of the things you learn, one of the disciplines you learn in that is forgiveness. It's giving yourself grace. So if you do have that bad week, it's not like, well, I'll just start again next month.
Right. You start the next day.
Or if you have a bad day, it's not, okay, well, I'll start again next Monday. Like I can't. The number of people that have told me, especially when we had our gym, well, I got to get back on the bandwagon. I'll do it Monday. And it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're going to take the next 6 days and really blow it.
Right.
Just to start it six steps further behind next Monday. Like, why not this afternoon?
Right.
Okay. So you had a Bojangles biscuit for breakfast. All right. Stop now.
Right. Don't have one tomorrow.
Yeah. Don't get Chick-fil-A for lunch unless you're getting grilled. It's not, well, I'm just going to I'm going to coast until Monday. No, it's the right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going through this process yourself and you develop these 4 things you want to achieve, and you develop a vision statement, and you develop an objective and a tactic, if you blow it on a day, that doesn't mean stop.
Right.
It just means, okay, give yourself some grace, recognize, okay, that day's going to count against me, but I'm not going to let the rest of the week count against me as well.
Yeah. So I was listening to a podcast earlier today. One of our guests, Chad Wright, was on a podcast with Andy Priscilla. And he said something to the effect of, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, I know I'll get it wrong, but to the effect of, if you hit your personal standard every single day, then that is not a good personal standard, because you should at some point fall short of that and not hit it. So if you're hitting it every day, then you really have set the bar far too low.
Right. Yeah. And so I've made jokes with some of the ones that come in the room, and why have you struggles this week? Then we need to reevaluate your plan, because it's obviously not hard enough.
Right. So if you say that you're only going to, I don't know, I can't even think of anything really ridiculous right now, but let's say you're only going to have 4 creamers in your coffee versus your normal 6. Okay, well, that's progress, but you're still doing terrible.
Yeah. Let's reevaluate.
Right.
And sometimes you need to reevaluate the other way, because you bite off more than you can chew. And I think that's
for sure.
But I do think that's one of the main big benefits of having someone walk you through it.
Getting some objectivity.
Getting objectivity and recognizing, don't bite off more than you can chew. I mean, I've had people that came in the room and they have this idealistic thing that they want to lose 28 pounds, 30 pounds in 12 weeks. I'm like, well, let's reevaluate that. You're going to be with me for 24 weeks. Let's set a goal that's a stretch, right? But achievable, and something you're not going to have to starve yourself and do unhealthy things to get to.
Well, not only that, but I think sometimes what you can ultimately want the most is very big. And if you just look at that one big end result, then you're going to miss all of the important milestones along the way, because there are going to be so many touch points along the way that you really need to celebrate, because you're being consistent, you're doing the work, you're putting in the effort, and you're getting closer. And let's say that you make this big audacious goal and you come 98% of the way. Do you consider that a failure or a win? That's a win, because you had all of these other things that you accomplished and learned and achieved and overcame along the way. Just because you fall short of what you ultimately wanted doesn't mean you failed. But what did you take away from that? What other things did you do in the in-between, which I think is one of the more important things when you're looking at big goals. When you're looking at 12 weeks or you're looking at 24 weeks, break it down. Celebrate each of the wins that come your way.
Right.
Because even if you fall short, man, look how far you came.
And you'll get better at the estimation. You know, the system we've been using in our business to forecast and all those things, we have gotten to the point now we always make it a stretch, but when we miss, it's just by a tiny amount. Like we've gotten pretty adept, at setting forecasting based on how many times we've missed. And why did we miss? What caused the miss? So then as we're stepping into the next season in January, we have our annual meeting, like forecasting for the year will probably be the most accurate forecast we've ever done.
Because you guys have been consistently
at least it should be
doing that for what? 6-7 years.
Well, we started that process in June of 2017. So June of 23 would be 6 years. All but one of the dealerships took a break from it for about a year and a half, for who knows what reason. Didn't make sense. But the one dealership that never took a break, is that year and a half ahead of everyone else.
In the learning curve.
Right? But the fail fast, fail forward, fail quick, and learn that like that process for them is just so much easier to understand. And they've gotten so much better at, hey, what does the next season look like? It's pretty neat to see. And it applies to people too. Like you'll get, as you go through this process more and more often, you're going to set the expectation for yourself that's something that you can achieve, but it's a stretch. Right. But achievable.
Right.
So
anything else?
I heard something this week that kind of applies here. What you need most is probably found in where you want. Let's see, what you need most is probably found where you want to look the least.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard it, but I thought, how true is that? Because in the problems that we want to solve, it's usually in the place we want to work the least or look the least.
Or look the closest.
Right. And for people going through that process, it's usually in the mirror. You know, what you've got to overcome is
yourself
staring at the mirror. Right.
Right. Truth.
Well, I hope they've enjoyed this process. And if they have questions, like they always talk about our Instagram accounts on here, they can message one of the two of us to get more information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you have someone that you think needs to hear it, that you see needs to make some shifts in their life, and you think, well, hey, this process might work for them, share the podcast with them.
And offer to do it with them.
Yeah, and offer to be there for them.
No, not be there. Do it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When you're doing hard things, having a partner, like you've done 75, we did the years like 75 hard together, but you and Avery are doing 75 hard now together. And I know that, having each other to encourage one another to go through it and hold each other accountable makes a difference.
Yeah, one passing through the door going out, one passing through the door.
Yeah, where you headed out to workout. Outdoor workout.
Yeah, fair.
Praise that.
Certainly. Father God, we thank you for all the opportunities that we have to talk about things that worked and didn't work and could work, but should definitely be explored. It's just a great time to sit down and bounce ideas off of each other and share what nuggets we've taken away from different things, knowing that it will fall on the ears that need to hear it and those that need to maybe reassess, reevaluate, and look at things a little differently. We'll have that opportunity without any repercussions or judgment or anything else, because we're all works in progress. We thank you for everything that you've allowed us to be a part of and do and experience, for all the many opportunities. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Faith, Family, Fulfillment, brought to you by Chris and Suzanne Vester. We hope you enjoyed listening to this week's guests and stories. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Chris and Suzanne on Instagram at HVAUTOCOO and Suzanne.c.vester. That's at SUZANNE.c.vester.